Okay, good afternoon. Welcome to our webinar of Caring for the Caregivers, April 1st, 2025, which is National Caregiving Day. At the Alzheimer Society of York Region, we want all those who are a primary caregiver, somebody who is supporting an individual who is a care partner, healthcare professionals, family, friends, community agencies. We want everybody to know that if you are in the role of a care partner, that you matter. And we as a community want to do what we can to support those who are care partners. Sometimes we don't know what to do on how we can help and what a caregiver may be feeling. So I'm hoping that the suggestions, the conversations, the things that I share with you today will help those who are here to learn about how that they can support somebody who is a caregiver, but also the ability for a caregiver to reach out and ask for help when they need it. So I want to share this number with you because this number is changing. It is increasing. So in Canada alone, we have approximately 771,939 Canadians living with a dementia diagnosis. By the year 2050, we are going to see that there are over 1 million caregivers. And when looking at that number, we see that that is equivalent to the amount of 690,000 full-time jobs of individuals that are care partners for somebody that is living with a dementia diagnosis. Some numbers that may be shocking to some people, that there are on average 414 people that are receiving a diagnosis in dementia in Canada every day. Broken down, that's about 17 people an hour. And we see that by the year 2030, our number is going to be well over 1 million individuals that are going to be living with a dementia diagnosis. And in York Region alone, and York Region is quite large, but we have seen an increase of individuals living with the dementia to over 25,000 people. When we see the role of a caregiver, individuals don't take into account that they may have another job, other family responsibilities, and on top of those other responsibilities and other jobs that they are holding down, they are also caring for somebody who is living with a dementia of an increase of 26 additional hours that a caregiver is also caring for somebody who is living with a dementia diagnosis. And we see that a large amount of individuals are showing an increased risk of distress and burnout themselves. By the year 2020, we saw that majority of individuals, almost half of the individuals that were caregivers were between the ages of 45 and 65. 30% of those caregivers are actually under the age of 35. We often use a dementia umbrella term to describe dementia as a whole. Dementia is a description of a series of symptoms that individuals experience. Each spoke of an umbrella typically represents a different diagnosis. These are the more common types that you may be aware with of that maybe somebody you know is living with one of these types, or you're caring for somebody who is living with any of these types of dementia. Alzheimer's disease represents the more common type that is often diagnosed, closer to 80%. Vascular dementia, we are learning more and more about because this is about our lifestyle, about what we can do to help prevent the onset of a vascular dementia, about how we take care of ourselves, about our series of strokes or heart attacks. It's about what we eat. It's about smoking, not smoking, alcohol consumption, socialization. We're learning more about frontal temporal dementia more than ever. And what we do know about frontal temporal dementia is that, yes, the memory does decline over time, but we are seeing that frontal temporal individuals are showing more behavior changes first and foremost than the onset of changes with their memory. Lewy body dementia is another one that has actually brought more and more into the awareness of our community. And we are seeing that a lot of the symptoms that we see with Lewy body mimic of somebody that is living with Parkinson's. Now, saying that, please don't think that because somebody is living with Parkinson's that they will develop Lewy body. But we do see similar physical deteriorations in tremors and the ability to communicate. We see individuals with Lewy body have a higher increase of hallucinations as well. Individuals are displaying and learning more about dementia, which is wonderful because we are seeing that approximately 28,000 Canadians are living with what is called young onset dementia. And I say it's great that we are learning that there are more people because that means that the awareness about dementia is getting out there to our community. And mixed dementia, which is a combination of any type of these dementias or any of these or any of the over 100 that individuals are being diagnosed with. So you may be looking at this list and going, but I don't understand why some of these are on this list. It doesn't make sense. All of these have something in common, and that is that they are progressive neurodegenerative diseases with no cure. Not all of these types of dementia will progress the same way. Not everybody is going to experience symptoms the same way or even at the same time. Each individual is so incredibly unique when they are diagnosed. The majority of these are so extremely rare that you may not actually meet somebody that is living with any of these. But we bring these up because there may be that off chance that you do meet somebody, and to be aware that unfortunately that we do not have medications to stop the progression and we cannot cure these dementias. So what is dementia? As I mentioned, each individual is going to be very unique with their diagnosis. These are the 5 main symptoms that individuals do experience. And many of you may be familiar with these: the memory loss, the short-term memory and the long-term memory, that repetitive question, the why am I able to understand something that happened 50 years ago, but I'm having difficulties with being able to recall something that happened 5 minutes ago. And this is the way the brain is changing, the deterioration. The part of your brain that is responsible for short and long-term memory is called the hippocampus. Those long-term memories are really stuck in the back of the brain, and an individual is really holding on to them. Whereas that short-term memory, those are those memories, those experiences that have happened right now. They haven't had a chance to actually stay in the brain long enough to have an impact to remember. We definitely see a fabrication of stories of mixing up with things that happened from long ago with mixing up with what happened even 5 minutes ago. And this is part of the deterioration of the brain and how it affects individuals' memories. Judgment and reasoning. This is that safety component. How is an individual dressing for the weather? Are they dressing appropriately? It's a beautiful sunny day, but what is the actual temperature? Are they dressing according to the sunshine, or are they dressing according to that -7 out? Are they ingesting things that they shouldn't be? Are they getting lost in a familiar area? This is where families actually reach out to the societies, to other community agencies for help because they are concerned about the safety of their family. Maybe they're taking too much medication, maybe they're not taking their medication at all. We see changes with communications, the ability to articulate their thoughts, their needs, their wants, the ability to actually form sentences, engage in conversations. There are many individuals that are very lucky to speak many languages. Now, English may not be their mother tongue. They may have been speaking English for 30, 40 years, but if they were born somewhere else and they grew up speaking another language, that's part of their long-term memory, and individuals often revert back to their mother tongue. We may actually see a change in the dialect or a crossover with English and their mother tongue, which is very common. The ability to function, we all have our abilities that we can do from the moment we wake up to the moment that we go to sleep. And all of these take steps. We need to wake up in the morning, our personal care, your coffee, your tea, your breakfast. When an individual is showing progressive signs of a dementia, this is where they start to forget steps with that routine. When you think about personal care, when you think about how many steps does it take to brush your teeth, to locate the bathroom, to find the toothbrush, to actually look for the toothpaste, all of these take steps. Individuals oftentimes forget what comes next. And this is where care partners are often needing to offer prompts. Changes in moods and behaviors, absolutely, because individuals are starting to become frustrated. They're scared, they're embarrassed that all of a sudden they are needing support, guidance, and changes that they are seeing with their abilities. And as their communication changes and they are no longer able to express themselves, they're going to show you with changes in their behavior. Behavior is a means of communication without using the words. So if I can't do the zipper on my coat up, I'm going to show you how frustrated I am simply by taking my coat off and throwing it across the floor. But if you're not understanding my frustration and me needing some support to do my zipper, an individual might only see my frustration and taking off my coat and throwing it without truly understanding why. What does that mean? How am I feeling that I can't do up my zipper? Excuse me, all behavior has meaning. And this is where we become Sherlock Holmes. We put on our hat, our cape, and our bubble pipe, and we investigate. What does that behavior mean to the person? Our brain is a 3-pound miracle, and it is filled with all of these great functions. But what happens when somebody is diagnosed with any of the over 100 different types of dementia? And we see that all of these functions are spread out through our brain. So all of a sudden, somebody's got a diagnosis of a dementia, and one by one, the functions are starting to deteriorate. And as these functions start to deteriorate, and as they start to deteriorate and literally disintegrate, a care partner is the one that is there to pick up all of these functions bit by bit to make sure that that individual is safe, that they have everything that they need to make sure that they are taken care of. So I love this because once I heard not all superheroes wear capes, but in this case, I'm going to say all caregivers do wear a cape because being a care partner is so difficult. Being a caregiver of somebody who is living with a progressive dementia is extremely difficult because oftentimes caregivers don't put themselves first. These are common conversations that happen between maybe a family member, a friend, with a care partner. How are you? Fine. Need anything? Nope. Did you eat? Yep. Did you talk to anybody? No. Go out today? No. Would you like company? Not today. Did you sleep? Kind of. Now, when we see these questions and these common answers, what happens is caregivers put everything about who they are on the back burner. They're sleeping with one eye open. They are making sure that the person that they are caring for has everything that they need, that they are eating a meal, that they are engaging, that they are making sure that they are sleeping properly. Care partners often forget that they need to actually reach out, and actually they don't want to reach out because oftentimes they don't want to bother anybody else. They're hoping that things will just disappear and that they'll just go away on their own. What are caregivers actually experiencing? A lot of emotional strain, but they're going to be covering it up. There are so many things that they are experiencing: the demand, the sadness and the anxiety, the frustration, and most definitely the guilt. Are they doing enough for the person that they are caring for? And the guilt is going to eat them up because if something happens to the person that they are caring for, they're going to put the onus on themselves and they are going to feel the guilt. And because of all of that, oftentimes the care partner, they are going to actually burn out. They're going to burn out emotionally. They're physically going to burn out. Maybe they'll be getting sick more often. They won't be visiting the doctor. They actually maybe won't even be able to roll out of bed because of how much it has consumed them. And when they are no longer able to roll out of bed, they are now experiencing a high risk of depression. And with that onset of depression, there are opening up a whole bunch of other challenges. And then they're also experiencing anger and frustration. Maybe it's towards the person that they're caring for, and maybe it's towards family, to other people, and they're feeling this isn't fair and I'm angry. And no, it's not. It's not fair. And then if the person that is living with the dementia is living at home, maybe there's that financial strain. Maybe there's some medical supplies that are needed. Maybe there's some equipment that is needed. Or even if somebody is living in a long-term care or a retirement community, there are those financial things that need to be taken care of, but maybe the caregiver doesn't have that financial stability. And caregivers, they often feel very isolated, from people, from activities, and even if they do get a call once a week, twice a week, oftentimes they do not feel that they are being supported. And it doesn't mean that they're not, it just means that they themselves are feeling that in their heart. Oftentimes, caregivers are not feeling like they have privacy for themselves, especially if they may be living alone with the person that they are caring for. Because oftentimes we hear that the person living with the dementia doesn't want to leave them out of their sight. And sometimes there isn't a family, and there may be friends, but there may be a community as well. But it's how that caregiver may feel, and it's about what other health risks does that caregiver have that we also may need to be aware of. With the added stress that a caregiver does actually experience, we do see an increased risk of other health conditions that can impact the caregiver more so than the person living with a dementia. And we absolutely see that it is very difficult for them to maintain care for themselves, to go to the eye doctor, to go fill a prescription, to even just sit outside and get those rays of sunshine. Individuals are exhausted. They sleep, but are they really sleeping? It's very unsettled because they're making sure that the person that they are caring for is safe and is sleeping through the night, because maybe that individual does not sleep through the night and they have the habit of getting up and walking through the house at night. And when all of these are compounded onto a caregiver, that caregiver may not actually be able to concentrate themselves on those day-to-day functions, those day-to-day routines, those things that they need to do. Maybe it's even themselves taking medication. Maybe it's themselves not taking the pot off the stove and it boiling over. Those things that are really impacting that caregiver because of all of these challenges that they are experiencing themselves. Now, these are just a few things that maybe some caregivers are actually feeling, and some people might not. Everybody, every caregiver's situation, their living experiences is so unique. So this is not to generalize that this is how a caregiver or all caregivers do feel. But these are some things that caregivers have come back to actually say. And it's okay to admit this. It takes strength and it takes courage. And sometimes when a caregiver actually admits any of these to themselves, that may be a great indicator for family, friends, for the community to come in and offer that support. Being a caregiver is filled with a lot of different emotions, and those emotions, they're a very unstable teeter-totter here, and they're filled with so much fear, discomfort. I mentioned anger, jealousy, joy, and yes, aggression. And from day to day, some of these may be heightened in comparison to other days. And not all of these are going to be experienced on the same day or the same way. So, how can we suggest to even manage some of these challenges? And these are just some suggestions. Trying. And I know that it's not easy for everybody, but trying to find a way to think about yourself. Because if something happens to a caregiver, is there somebody to step in to support your family? Can you focus on an exercise for yourself, even for 10 minutes? 10 minutes might make you feel better. Connecting with other caregivers, whether it's through our support groups that we offer through the Alzheimer's Society of York Region ourselves, getting professional help, finding something that is important to you and being able to reach out to get assistance. Asking for help is very difficult. But like I mentioned, it takes a lot of courage. And there are many people that do want to help. So allow them to. Don't try and put too many goals for you to complete all at once. Be realistic about what you can get done in a day. You don't need to try and get 5 things done in a day. If you can get 2 of those things done in a day, fantastic. And if you have the energy or the time and you can get that third thing done, count that as a bonus. There are a lot of different resources, whether it's through the Alzheimer's Society, or we can even connect you to other community partner resources that can help support you if we are not able to meet your needs as a caregiver. What can somebody do that is coming to visit to help you and to help the person that you are caring for, your family, the person that is living with the dementia? When you go and visit a care partner and they are caring for somebody living with a dementia, make sure that it's a convenient time for the caregiver and the person living with the dementia. 4 o'clock may not be a good time. Talk to the caregiver and see what works for them, what works for the person that they are caring for. Do not try and say, okay, I'm going to come over from 12 to 3. Maybe that's too long of a time. So really talking to the person, to the care partner to see what would work best. Understanding communication. Because somebody is living with a dementia does not mean that you need to raise your voice. Because if you raise your voice, the first thing they're going to think is that they've done something wrong and you're angry with them. Make sure that your tone is calm, that you use body language, your gestures, your nonverbal, your facial expressions. An individual is going to read you like a book. So, positive, open body language, and make sure you introduce yourself. Hi, Jamie. It's great to see you. and introducing yourself because you might remember the person living with a dementia, but don't guarantee that they may recognize and know who you are because it may have been quite a while since they have seen you. Humor is wonderful. Share some experiences. Laughter helps alleviate that stress for the person that's living with the dementia and their care partner. If you are in a rush, don't go and visit and don't start a conversation because you need to be patient and listen to the individual who is living with the dementia. Allow them time to respond. It's going to take approximately 30 seconds for them to hear what you're saying and then the ability to respond to you. Maybe there's some common interests that you can actually communicate about. Focus on what those person's strengths are. Maybe you have a common interest in gardening. I know that a friend of mine, and just before we had the webinar, we're talking about gardening, and I said, it's too early to garden. And she said, well, you can clean up the garden. And I'm like, oh no, it's too early. So even small conversations, keeping it lighthearted, will help. You don't need to have a serious conversation. And show your emotions and show you care. The person living with the dementia will greatly appreciate that, and so will the caregiver. If you are going to visit the caregiver and they have the person that they are caring for at home, make sure that that individual actually is included and not ignored in your visit and your conversation. What can you do for the caregiver? Listen. Sometimes caregivers just need to talk. They don't need you to solve their problem. They might just need to talk to somebody. They might just need you to be present. Maybe it's about doing a few errands. It's calling me up and saying, hey, Jamie, I'm going to the grocery store and I'm going to pass by your house. Can I pick you up some eggs or some bread or milk? Or is there any fruit that you and your family care to have? Maybe it's even doing some chores. Maybe it's about shoveling the driveway, mowing the lawn, doing some things that maybe, as we have seen, where the roles have changed and one care partner may not know how to do some tasks. So if you know how to use a lawnmower, maybe you can actually help mow the lawn. Maybe it's about saying, go take a bath, go take a nap, giving the caregiver a break and staying with the person who is living with the dementia, and that you have a meal with them within the home, but giving that care partner an opportunity to soak in a bubble bath or go for a walk. Especially as the sun is staying out longer and the weather is changing, hopefully pretty soon as we are leaping into spring. Maybe that caregiver doesn't feel comfortable leaving their family, but that's okay. It's about including and working together. Stay in touch with that caregiver, regular phone call and check-ins, an email, good old-fashioned text. I'm thinking about you. And I love good old-fashioned snail mail. Maybe it's even about mailing a card so that caregiver knows that you're thinking about them because you've taken the time to even just write a letter or send a card. Be attentive and be there for the caregiver. And maybe it's joining webinars much like this to learn about Alzheimer's disease and related dementias, about what we can learn about the progression, about the things that are changing with the person living with the dementia, understanding what to expect with the progression from the moment of diagnosis to where that individual will end up. Being on the dementia journey is a very long journey. It's definitely not a journey that anybody wants to be on, but a care partner, a caregiver needs your support. So it's about being there for them, being there for the person that is living with a dementia as well. So there's a few things that we do need to be aware of about things that we should say, but there are also some things that we should refrain from saying. So some great things that we can actually say to a caregiver is, I'm here with you. You can count on me. How are you holding up? And how can I be useful? And these may be very difficult questions for a caregiver, but even to put them out there for a caregiver to hear them and even the opportunity to repeat them may just open up a caregiver to share with you. Things that you want to refrain from saying and doing. If you are experiencing your own negativity and drama going on in your own life, don't bring it up to the caregiver unless they specifically say, okay, enough about me. What's happening with, and naming some things. Maybe they know about some experiences. Looking at this visit and what you are doing for the caregiver, it is not about you, but it's about being there to help that caregiver, to find a way to support them. It's about how you can incorporate what they are experiencing into their day-to-day struggle and really listen to them. Don't tell them how they should rearrange their schedule, their home, their life. Because unless you have stepped into the shoes of a caregiver, you don't know what that individual may be experiencing 24/7. Unless they're going to actually ask you for suggestions or want to hear about a positive experience, don't gloat and say, oh, Jimmy got into law school and Sally got into hairdressing school and oh, I'm so proud. And because this is where, and they don't mean to, but they're going to become jealous about those positive things that you may be experiencing that they may not be having in their life at the moment. A few things that a caregiver does not want to actually hear you say is that you look tired. I really don't know how you do it. Oh, your father used to be a really great guy. Oh my goodness, it takes a real special person to do this job. Oh, you just call me if you need any help. Ah, it's all for the best. What can I possibly help you with? So these are some negative things that caregivers really don't want to hear, that it is going to put more stress and more pressure on them. 51% of Canadians are actually using stigmatized language. Have you ever heard that somebody is called crazy? Oh, it's just senile. Oh gosh, they're demented. Or they come up and they tell you a joke. This is what we classify under a stigmatizing. Did you know that 1 in 5 Canadians who are caring for a person who is living with a dementia, half of those individuals actually have experienced stigma? 41% believe life would be better if they were not caring for an individual living with a dementia. Living with a dementia does not mean that a caregiver's life is over. It does not mean that the caregiver and the person living with dementia, that their life may be over. 87% of caregivers just really would wish that others truly understood what it means to be a caregiver of somebody who is relying on them, who is living with a dementia. And 66% of individuals do believe that they are very isolated from the world around them. Now, these were actually by people who are not caregivers themselves. And 1 in 2 Canadians don't believe that they could live well with dementia. You can live well with dementia. It's about what we do as a community, as a support, as family, as friends to help individuals who are living with a dementia. Life is not over. What is stigma? It's a negative attitude, discriminatory behavior against people living with a dementia just on the basis of having the disease. And many people who are displaying these stigma signs, they don't truly understand what dementia is. They don't understand what they are doing to the person who is living with the dementia. What can we do as a community, as a support? Talk about dementia. Share what you know. Don't assume that a person is no longer to have a conversation, to have fun, to laugh, to smile, to engage, to participate, to live. Use the appropriate language. A person is living with dementia, with Alzheimer's disease. They are not Alzheimer's disease. They are living with it. Be there to support. Listen to the experiences. And yes, there are going to be mistakes that do happen, but we learn from them. Talk to other individuals, test your knowledge about what you know about Alzheimer's disease, and then continue to educate yourself so that you can support that caregiver. If you do think that somebody is starting to show signs of any type of dementia, help them to find the best way to connect with a physician so that they can actually learn how to get a diagnosis. Maybe again, it's connecting through the Alzheimer's Society so we can help that caregiver, so we can help you to find the best path to where that individual is to get a proper diagnosis. There are so many wonderful websites. The Alzheimer's Society of York Region has a great website with great webinars that we are constantly posting for care partners, for the community, for individuals living with a dementia to learn more about what we can do. Because what we need is to understand and to get out there and prove that we can eliminate the stigma that is associated with the onset of a dementia. So maybe you are here because you do know somebody that is living with a diagnosis of a dementia, or maybe you wanted to just learn more about how to support somebody. This is a wonderful way for you to learn about how to keep individuals safe in your community. The Finding Your Way initiative is from the Alzheimer's Society of Ontario, and the link is here on the bottom for you to have an opportunity to identify when somebody is actually in your neighborhood, and if they are missing, if they are lost. What are those quick identifiers? How do you make sure that that person gets home safely to their family? First and foremost, the first thing that you can do and never hesitate is call 911. And if you go to this great website, this gives you a lot of videos so you can continue to educate yourself and learn about how you in your community can keep individuals living safely, and the care partners will know that their community is there to support them. These are just some of the services through the Alzheimer's Society of York Region that we have to offer. Whether you are a care partner, whether you are somebody living with a dementia diagnosis, whether you are a healthcare professional, we have the services here to support you at any stage that you may want to get more help in. At the Alzheimer's Society of York Region, 67% of our operating budget is covered by Ontario funding or through our government, which means that the Society does need other sources of revenue to support the remaining 23% of the costs that we need to deliver our programs, our services. So we do rely on our donations from our community groups, our foundations, our individual donors. We want to make sure that through our community that we can continue to make these programs available, possible, to continue to provide our education, our respite, whether it's our counseling programs, our healthcare and navigation, our First Link, our support groups. We have our great social recreation programs, which are great supports and respite for care partners. We can do this to make sure that with our donations from individuals like yourselves, that we can best meet the needs of our local families who are impacted by Alzheimer's disease and related dementias. And just to remind you that those local families, that 25,000 individuals that are living with a diagnosis of a dementia in York Region. At the bottom of the page here, you can see that there is a link, or you can scan the QR code if you are interested in a donation. I want to share some of the community supports and resources that we at the Society often refer our caregivers to, our community agencies, and us as well, to learn more about what we can do to help individuals in our community. I also want to let you know that these links, these services will be shared and be emailed out to everybody who has attended. So if you don't have an opportunity to take a screenshot or even to jot down all of these resources, not to worry, you will have them sent out to you. At this time, I would really like to thank everybody for coming to the webinar today, and to hopefully there were some suggestions that you could take away from today. There are a couple of questions that I would like to share now. If you do have any questions, please, you can put them in the Q&A and I will do my best to answer them. If I don't have an opportunity to get through them, you can email me. Also, there will be a survey that does come out. You can actually indicate if you want myself or any of the other team members to get in touch with you and an opportunity to connect with us, to connect with any of our community supports. So, do people diagnosed with young onset dementia live longer than other diagnoses? So, that's a really great question. With each individual that does receive a diagnosis, the progression of the dementia is going to definitely depend on other health conditions and how fast an individual may progress. Those that are living with young onset dementia, we see that those individuals do progress quicker than some other individuals. Now, saying that everybody is, again, I am repeating myself, is unique, but other health conditions can contribute to how fast or how slow an individual does progress. How do you help when the family member thinks he or she is fine? Caregiving, having difficulty reasoning with family. Sometimes it's about just bringing over a meal. If you ask and you know that that particular family is always going to say no, because oftentimes caregivers, they say, I don't want to be a burden. But all we want to do is to offer that support. So sometimes it's just showing up to bring a meal, calling and just offering. Don't give up on offering. Judge how the individual is actually answering your questions. Listen to their tone. Listen to see how tired they are. See if you can plan that visit. I'm going to be in the area on Saturday. I would love to come by for a visit for a cup of tea. Maybe a meal is too long. The minute you start to, some people don't necessarily want to say, I need help, but if you're going to come over for a visit, that may be a great way to introduce coming over and them seeing that you are there to support. It may take a couple times, but they may not actually want to impose. How do I get in touch with somebody, help with a parent with Alzheimer's disease? Please take down my email, or you can wait when you get the survey tomorrow and indicate your email, or you can email me directly. My email is here, and that way you will connect with me and I will help you get connected and help you on that journey. How can a caregiver manage the person living with dementia's behavior of hiding things that's getting worse? So oftentimes people are hiding things because It could be from a past experience where oftentimes individuals may have lived without something, so they feel that they need to hide it to make sure that it is protected. If you want to make sure that something is not taken and that it is protected, you want to put that in a safe place. What do we often see that is being moved around and hidden? Phones, um, remote controls often get hidden because to the person who is living with the dementia, putting it in that place makes sense. Is it making sense to you? Not necessarily, but if it's something that you want to make sure that might have value, make sure that you put it away in a safe place so it doesn't get misplaced. Sometimes we can't actually control about where things or why that person may be hiding something. And this is where, unfortunately, it does become a bit of a scavenger hunt to look for that phone or look for that remote control or look for certain cutlery, and because it may be going back to an experience that they might have had. Places to look when people are hiding things, think of the most uncharacteristic places that somebody would hide something. Not necessarily in the cupboard or underneath the sink, but think outside the box, somewhere in the bathroom, somewhere on the people have even hidden things in the toilet tanks, in the bathtubs. So try and think of the really unusual places that somebody is going to put something. So how do you deal with somebody, a dementia individual? So my suggestion is get in touch with me and then we can further discuss, because there are so many elements that that I would want to learn more about as to understand what kinds of things you are wanting an answer to. So if you want to email me, then we can absolutely have a further discussion about what sorts of things you may be looking at and support. What resources are available for a caregiver who is going through cancer treatments? So it depends on what it is that that caregiver may need. Are you needing a companion that comes to stay with that individual living with a dementia while that caregiver is going through treatment? Are you looking for that respite, whether it's a day program for that person living with a dementia to come to so that caregiver can take care of themselves? So there are different things that are available that we can definitely look at. And again, I would suggest sending an email to me so then that way I can understand more about what it is that you may be looking for. So then that way I can guide you into the direction to best support the caregiver who they themselves are needing support, but for the person that is living with a dementia, what those options are to make sure that somebody can come in and make sure that they are cared for so the caregiver can focus on their treatments themselves. So if you are looking for assessment for your parent, what you can do is that you connect with Ontario Health at Home. In Ontario Health at Home, they are the guru of managing our day program websites and managing wait lists and the way to get community supports. And so what you can do is that Connect with Ontario Health at Home. Let them know that you have somebody who is living with a dementia and you require the care coordinator. They will come and do an assessment of your family, and then you will talk to them about what it is that you need. If you need more of what to do and you want to talk it out, please again connect with me and I will help you step by step on what you definitely can do to get your parent assessed. Would you consider a cupboard locked with food items so PSW has access and not to the individual living with the dementia? Whenever there is a safety concern, I definitely see that that can be a positive. And if you are concerned that the person that is living with the dementia, that there is an increased risk, that if the cupboard is left unlocked, then you can absolutely have some cupboards in your home locked and have certain valuables and have some foods that are locked away if you are concerned about the person living with the dementia. So, yes, you can have that. If you do have further questions, please feel free to connect with me. I hope that this webinar was helpful for all of you that did attend. And if you do need to be connected to any of our support team, please finish the survey that will come to you tomorrow. Thank you all so very much for sharing your afternoon with me.